I didn't want to be a movie star, first of all. I just felt people in, in LA and movie industry, they were all messed up. I didn't want to be.
For decades, Goldie Hawn was Hollywood's golden girl. The sparkling blonde with the infectious laugh, dazzling smile, and boundless energy that could light up any room. She was the definition of joy. From Laugh-In to Private Benjamin and Overboard, Goldie embodied a rare kind of magic. One that made audiences believe that happiness really could last forever. But behind that famous laughter, Goldie carried heartbreaks that very few ever saw. Now, at 79, her story is far more bittersweet than anyone could have imagined. Her once glamorous life has been marked by loss, loneliness, and painful struggles that she spent years trying to hide behind her trademark grin. Fans remember her for the bubbly roles and the picture-perfect relationship with longtime partner Kurt Russell, one of Hollywood's most enduring love stories. But even that fairy tale romance has faced its share of trials. And as Goldie enters her twilight years, the woman who once symbolized joy has quietly endured emotional wounds that no amount of fame or fortune could ever heal. From personal battles with depression and family, rifts to the painful realities of aging in an industry obsessed with youth, Goldie's journey has not been easy. Yet through it all, she remains a symbol of resilience, still smiling, still fighting, still refusing to let tragedy define her spirit. So what really happened to Goldie Hawn? What heartbreaks has she faced behind closed doors? And how has she managed to survive them all? Let's take a closer look at the hidden sadness behind one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Goldie Hawn was born on November 21, 1945, in Washington, D.C., into a middle-class family far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. Her father, Edward Hawn, was a band musician, and her mother, Laura, ran a dance school. From a young age, Goldie's world revolved around music and movement. She began dancing at just 3 years old and was teaching ballet by the time she was a teenager. But even as a child, Goldie often described herself as sensitive, hiding her pain behind smiles and laughter. Her path to fame began unexpectedly. In the late 1960s, she was hired as a dancer on the hit TV show Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. With her bubbly personality, infectious giggle, and sparkling eyes, she quickly became the show's breakout star. America fell in love with her, the funny, carefree blonde who seemed to have joy radiating from every inch of her being. But few realized that behind that laughter was a young woman battling crippling anxiety and insecurity. Success came fast, and so did the pressure. Hollywood demanded perfection, and Goldie often felt trapped by the image she had created. She wanted to be taken seriously as an actress, but directors kept offering her comedic roles. It wasn't until 1969's Cactus Flower that she finally got her big break. A performance that earned her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Overnight, she became a Hollywood A-lister. The fame, however, didn't bring happiness. Goldie married actor Gus Trichinus in 1969, but their marriage fell apart within a few years. She later wed musician Bill Hudson, with whom she had 2 children, Oliver and Kate Hudson. But even that marriage crumbled, leaving Goldie heartbroken and struggling to raise her children alone while managing the chaos of fame. Her divorce from Bill Hudson in 1982 was messy and painful. Over the years, Goldie's son, Oliver, publicly spoke about the emotional distance between their father and the family, revealing that he and Kate were essentially raised by their mother. Goldie did everything she could to protect her children from the harshness of Hollywood life. But the strain left deep emotional scars. Despite her personal struggles, Goldie's career continued to soar. Throughout the 1980s, she starred in a string of hits: Private Benjamin, Overboard, Swing Shift, and Bird on a Wire. Each performance showcased her effortless charm and impeccable timing. But behind the scenes, Goldie was quietly battling depression. In interviews later in life, She admitted that fame had come with overwhelming loneliness. "People think laughter means happiness," she once said, "but sometimes it's just a mask for pain." The turning point came when she met actor Kurt Russell in 1983 on the set of Swing Shift. The chemistry was instant, and though both were cautious after failed relationships, they soon fell deeply in love. Their bond became one of Hollywood's rare success stories, a love that lasted decades without the need for marriage. For Goldie, Kurt was her anchor, the one person who saw beyond her celebrity image and loved her for who she truly was. Together, they raised their blended family and created a stable, private life away from the chaos of Hollywood. But even with Kurt's support, Goldie continued to struggle internally. She spoke openly about her lifelong battle with anxiety and depression, explaining that her mind often spiraled into dark places despite her success. To cope, Goldie turned to mindfulness and meditation, eventually founding the Mind Uppy program, an educational initiative focused on mental health and emotional well-being for children. Her goal was to help others learn how to manage stress and sadness, something she had struggled with all her life. Still, as the years passed, the tragedies in Goldie's life deepened. Friends noticed her withdrawing from public life, becoming more introspective. She began talking more about loss, the passing of loved ones, and the pain of watching Hollywood change around her. For a woman who once symbolized eternal youth and joy, facing the realities of aging, both in her career and in her personal life, became one of her greatest challenges. As Goldie Hawn entered her later years, her once radiant smile began to hide a deeper sorrow, one that had little to do with fame and everything to do with time. The woman who had once danced her way into America's heart was quietly learning that even the brightest stars can't escape the weight of loss. Her longtime relationship with Kurt Russell, though often portrayed as perfect, hasn't been without its challenges. While they've stood by each other for over 4 decades, Goldie has spoken honestly about the difficulties of maintaining love without the security of marriage. She said that commitment isn't about a ring, it's about choice. But she's also admitted that years of balancing 2 strong personalities have not been easy. The couple faced periods of distance and tension, especially as Goldie's career began to slow down while Kurt continued working. They chose to stay out of the Hollywood spotlight to preserve their privacy, but rumors of quiet separations and growing differences have occasionally followed them. Still, despite the speculation, Goldie and Kurt's bond has endured, a testament to their shared strength, respect, and deep affection. Yet, even the strongest relationships can't shield someone from grief. Goldie has endured the loss of several close friends and colleagues over the years, people who defined the golden age of Hollywood alongside her. Each passing seemed to take a piece of her joy with it. She once said that losing friends who shared her journey was like losing little pieces of who you were. But perhaps the hardest part of aging for Goldie hasn't been physical decline or fading fame. It's the emotional toll of seeing the world she once knew slowly disappear. Hollywood, once full of laughter, friendship, and creativity, has transformed into a business obsessed with youth, technology, and social media. For someone who built her career on authenticity and charm, that change has been painful to witness. She's also spoken about the loneliness that comes with growing older in the spotlight. "When you get to a certain age," she once said, "you become invisible. People stop seeing you. They look through you." It's a feeling that many older women in Hollywood have echoed. But coming from Goldie Hawn, the woman who once lit up every room she walked into, it feels especially heartbreaking. To make matters worse, Goldie has faced ongoing health issues that have limited her ability to work as freely as she once did. While she's kept many of her struggles private, insiders say she's battled fatigue and stress-related conditions brought on by years of overwork. Despite her efforts to maintain a healthy lifestyle, yoga, meditation, and clean eating, age has inevitably taken its toll. Her emotional health has also been tested by the complicated dynamics within her family. Though she shares a famously close bond with her daughter, Kate Hudson, reports of tension between Goldie and her ex-husband, Bill Hudson, have resurfaced over the years. Bill's public criticism of Goldie, accusing her of turning their children against him, was a wound that never fully healed. Even as Goldie tried to maintain peace, the pain of that fractured relationship haunted her privately. And while Kate often praises her mother for being her biggest inspiration, the two women's careers have occasionally drawn unwanted comparisons. Both actresses share similar charisma and comedic timing, but Goldie has often expressed guilt over the idea that her fame may have made things harder for Kate early in her career. Now, at 79, Goldie spends most of her time away from the Hollywood scene she once ruled. She and Kurt live quietly in their Colorado home, surrounded by nature, where she finds peace in her garden and in meditation. But even in that calm, there's a quiet sadness in her interviews, a sense that she's reflecting more than ever on what was lost along the way. Her story, once full of laughter and golden light, now carries the melancholy of a woman who gave everything to the world: her talent, her beauty, her spirit, and was left to face the silence that follows when the applause fades. Still, through all her heartbreak, Goldie remains a symbol of resilience. Her strength lies not in pretending everything is perfect, but in showing the world that even in pain, there can be grace. As the 2000s rolled in, Michelle Pfeiffer seemed to have it all: an acclaimed career, a devoted husband in television producer David E. Kelley, and two beautiful children. To the outside world, she was the image of grace and success. But behind the closed doors of her quiet home in Northern California, Michelle's world was unraveling in ways she could barely understand herself. The pressures of Hollywood, once manageable, had begun to suffocate her. For years, she had managed to balance stardom with family, but the cracks were starting to show. Her children were growing up, her scripts were drying up, and the industry that once adored her had moved on to younger faces. For someone as introspective as Michelle, that reality cut deep. She confessed in one interview that she began to question everything, not just her career choices, but her own worth. "There's this point," she said softly, "where you look around and realize you're not the same person they once wanted. You're older, wiser, and yet, somehow, invisible." That sense of invisibility haunted her. She turned down multiple projects, preferring the quiet of home life. While her husband continued producing hit shows like Boston Legal and Big Little Lies, Michelle slipped away from the public eye. Fans wondered if she had retired. In truth, she was lost, struggling to find balance between the woman she used to be and the one she was becoming. Her anxiety deepened after losing several close friends to illness. Each loss reminded her of her own fragility, and she began to dread the future. One insider claimed Michelle started keeping to herself almost entirely, avoiding social gatherings, premieres, and even old friends from the industry. She was still breathtakingly beautiful, the insider said, but you could see the sadness in her eyes, like she was mourning something no one else could see. Even at home, she felt the emotional distance growing. David Kelley's demanding schedule often kept him away, and Michelle's children were becoming more independent. She spent long hours walking alone on the coastal trails near her house, reflecting on her past and questioning the choices that had shaped her life. In those quiet moments, she admitted, she faced her greatest fear: irrelevance. Hollywood had never been kind to aging actresses, and Michelle knew that reality better than anyone. "You can't compete with time," she once said. "You can only learn to live with it." But learning to live with it proved harder than expected. As her 60s approached, Pfeiffer began to experience health struggles that she kept largely private. She was rumored to have dealt with periods of fatigue and emotional exhaustion. Friends described her as haunted, though she rarely opened up about her pain. In one rare appearance at an awards event, fans noticed how thin and tired she looked. Social media erupted with concern. Yet Michelle brushed off the comments with grace, saying only, "I'm fine, just living life." But those who knew her best said she was quietly battling more than anyone realized: emotional burnout, physical weariness, and the crushing isolation that comes when fame fades, but memories don't. Despite everything, she tried to find solace in her family and in her garden. The place, she said, helped her breathe again. "It's peaceful," she shared in one interview. "It reminds me that life keeps growing, even when you don't feel like it." Still, deep down, Michelle Pfeiffer couldn't escape the ghosts of what she once was. A woman adored by millions, now quietly fading into the background of her own story. And as time moved on, the world began to wonder if she would ever truly return, or if the Hollywood that once made her a legend had finally taken too much from her to ever give anything back. In recent years, Michelle Pfeiffer has chosen a life far removed from the glittering chaos of Hollywood. Living quietly in her serene California estate, she spends her mornings in meditation and her afternoons tending to her plants or sketching by the window. The woman who once mesmerized audiences with her on-screen brilliance now seeks comfort in stillness, in moments that don't demand applause. When she occasionally steps back into the spotlight, fans are stunned by how different she seems. The confidence is still there, the beauty still undeniable. But her eyes tell a different story. They hold decades of pain, sacrifice, and introspection. "I don't chase perfection anymore," she said in a reflective interview. "I'm just trying to find peace in who I am now." Her words carry the weight of someone who has seen both the best and worst of fame. Pfeiffer has openly spoken about the emotional cost of her career. The years spent away from her children, the constant scrutiny, the impossible expectations of youth and beauty. "I used to believe success meant being everywhere," she confessed. "Now success to me means being content, even if no one's watching." Still, there are moments when the melancholy returns. Old fans often share clips of her in Scarface, Batman Returns, or The Fabulous Baker Boys, reminding the world of her timeless magnetism. But for Michelle, watching those moments can be painful. They remind her of a version of herself that no longer exists, a version shaped by ambition, fear, and the constant need to please others. Over the years, she's learned that Hollywood never truly loves you. It only loves the image you provide. Once that image fades, the silence can be deafening. For Michelle, that silence became both her burden and her salvation. It forced her to rediscover herself, not as a movie star, but as a human being. Those close to her say she's learned to embrace the quiet life, though the pain of feeling forgotten still lingers. She's come to terms with aging, a friend revealed, but there's still sadness there. A sadness that comes from realizing how fleeting everything really is. Yet, even in her solitude, Michelle Pfeiffer hasn't lost her spark. Every so often, she'll surprise fans by appearing in a rare film or social media post. Not for fame, but to remind herself that she still can. Her return to acting in movies like French Exit showed flashes of the brilliance that made her a legend. But her approach was different this time. She acted not for validation, but for expression. "I don't need to prove anything anymore," she said quietly. "I just want to feel connected again." Her husband, David E. Kelly, has been her constant support, encouraging her to live life on her own terms. Together, they've weathered the storms of fame, family, and fading stardom. "He's seen every version of me," she once admitted. "And he's still here. That's love." Today, At 67, Michelle Pfeiffer remains one of Hollywood's most mysterious figures, a woman who stepped away at the height of her power and found beauty in her vulnerability. The glamorous red carpets are gone, but in their place is something more profound: peace, authenticity, and acceptance. Still, her story remains bittersweet, because no matter how content she seems, those who know her best say she carries a quiet sadness, the unspoken grief of a woman who gave her heart to an industry that never truly gave it back. But in her calm, reflective way, Michelle seems to have made peace with that truth. "Everything fades," she once said, her voice soft but steady. "But if you can love yourself when the lights go out, that's when you've really lived." And perhaps that's Michelle Pfeiffer's true legacy. Not just her unforgettable performances, but the courage to walk away, heal, and redefine what happiness means when the cameras stop rolling.